it's the program, yeah. It's Democritus.
Hello, my name's Democritus. How are you doing?
Yeah, what happens here on the show, turn on the machines and we start talking, talk for 1 hour. And that's the program. It's Thursday. Yeah, Maggie didn't show up. It's Democritus now. So he's, we talked to him before, we tried to get you on the past.
About the scheduling difficulties, right? Ooh.
Yeah, I turned you up a little bit. You don't have to hold the mic so close, yeah.
Sorry about the scheduling difficulties right there, but we got it all worked out, and here I am.
Yeah.
You know, ready to say stuff.
Yeah, so you're running for city council, right?
That's right. And I'm running for Olympia City Council, position 2. And
what does that mean? What does position 2 mean?
Well, the Olympia City Council is the legislative branch of the City of Olympia's government. It's the body that comes up with the budget, and it also is in charge of coming up with all of the laws in the City of Olympia. They're called ordinances. And there are 7 positions within the City of Olympia's legislative branch, the City Council. They're not to any particular district.
McDonald's gave me a double burger when I got instead of a regular one. That is lucky, but yes.
All right. So in any case, the City of Olympia has all of its city council member positions that have citywide jurisdiction. So if you're in position 1 or position 3 or 2, then you have an equal capacity to affect legislative decision making as amongst all of the others. So, yeah. Well, I'm running for city council because I would like to see some fundamental changes take place within the City of Olympia's government, you know.
So what's the numbers though? Why is there different position numbers? Is that for different parts of town?
No, as I've said, it does not correspond to different particular districts within the City of Olympia. Instead, what takes place is every single position within the City Council has an equal legislative authority to affect the entire city for the decisions that are made by the whole City Council, you see. So I would be one vote amongst 7 that would be deciding what the ordinances would be that be affecting the whole city. I wouldn't be making decisions for only one particular district within the City of Olympia. And I don't represent only one particular district. I represent the whole city.
Okay. Are you from Olympia or the area?
Yeah, I've lived in Olympia for 12 years. And I've been going to school here, graduated from South Puget Sound Community College. I graduated from Evergreen. While I was going to these places, I studied statistics, American history, American government, political science, logic, geometrical proofs, which is an intense kind of logic, and conservation theory in action. I've studied a lot of stuff that I think is relevant for the position I'm seeking. I've also done a lot of local political activism here. I was the first person to do direct civil disobedience against the port militarization shipments.
What do you mean you were the first person to, like, you went out there by yourself? Or?
Yes, back in 2004, November of 2004.
Did you get arrested?
Yes, I did. And so in any case, I've also done a lot of other stuff too. I've worked with 9/11 Truth. And
what does that mean? You think the government did 9/11? Or?
Yes, absolutely. It turns out that there's ample evidence already in place to demonstrate that assertion.
Why would they want to do that?
I'll tell you why. Well, see, here's the thing. This is a problem that I have with legislative governments generally. You see, the people who have power, they are not satisfied with the power they have. They always want more. You see?
Yeah.
And that tends to be the case with politicians, so-called representatives, and they tend to be frustrated at whatever restrictions are in place with the kinds of power and authority they're supposed to have. So they always come up with one scheme or another to try to get more to try to get fewer restrictions on the kinds of agendas they'd like to carry forth. And 9/11 is an example of that. Basically, the objectives were this: to establish a pretext for imperial wars of aggression to go and steal natural resources in other parts of the world, and also to provide a justification for the Patriot Act, which is a direct assault on basic civil liberties. Now, if there wasn't a 9/11 event, people wouldn't have gone along with it as easily, you see, but I mean, it's the same old thing that happened in the story of Chicken Little. You know, a whole bunch of people got scared about something that was not a real threat, namely Al-Qaeda attacking the United States, and when in fact it was the government that did it. People got all upset about some kind of false threat that the government tried to broadcast, and then it was used as an excuse to go over and exploit people and, in this case, remove their freedoms.
You're saying the government killed hundreds of American citizens, their own citizens?
It wasn't hundreds, it was actually thousands. That died on 9/11, and not 100% of the people within the United States government, but key people at the higher levels had orchestrated this.
Wow.
And now, it might sound incredible, but as it turns out, the United States government has done things like this in the past, has used false flag operations, is what they're called, to justify imperial wars of aggression. The USS Maine, for example, was a naval ship that was bombed. Later, as it turns out, evidence showed that it was bombed by somebody within the U.S. government. It was bombed in order to provide a justification for the start of the Spanish-American War. Divers in the late 90s went down to the wreckage of the USS Maine and actually discovered that it had an explosion that did bring down the ship, it's true, but not an explosion from the outside in, but rather from the inside out. Now, that's the Spanish-American War. That's just one example. There are lots of other examples. 9/11 was just a continuation of a certain pattern in American history that you don't tend to hear about in the public education curriculum, probably for obvious reasons. But yeah, interesting thing, it turns out that a team of scientists have gathered forensic evidence that demonstrates conclusively that it had to have been criminal agents at the highest levels of the United States government who orchestrated this. Now, it turns out that they actually found inside of multiple different dust samples a military-grade explosive that was unexploded, little chips of it that were unexploded, known as super thermite. And this is something that only government laboratories, a few of them in the world, are able to manufacture. And extrapolating from the samples they had, which were all the same characteristic, there would have had to have been literally tons of this military-grade explosive known as super thermite present inside the World Trade Center at the time of its destruction. Now, what's a more plausible scenario to... Now, here's the thing. These findings by this team of scientists, they were backed up by other independent scientists who came and caused it to pass the peer review process. So we can be certain that these findings are sound. Now, the question is, what's a more plausible scenario to account for the forensic evidence that we have before us? Is it that people outside of the United States government, people in Al-Qaeda, over in Afghanistan, that they somehow got access to the military-grade explosive, which they weren't authorized to have, that they somehow got tons of it, that they somehow smuggled it into the United States, that they somehow smuggled it into the secure complex of the World Trade Center, and tons of it, by the way, and that they somehow then detonated it oh so politely as to ensure that the buildings would come down straight down into their own footprint symmetrically. Or is it a more plausible scenario to say that criminal agents at the highest levels of the United States government who had access to this military-grade explosive, who had access to tons of it, who had access to the United States, and who had access to the secure complexes of the World Trade Center, that they were the ones who actually planted these explosives there? Well, you know what? The answer is pretty obvious, and it's even more obvious when you consider that required procedures for investigating forensically the wreckage of a destroyed building were not followed, even though they're required to be followed by federal law. These procedures, these forensic procedures, were not followed in the case of 9/11, in the case of the World Trade Center towers. And there's lots more evidence, which is quite astonishing and further bolsters and further serves as evidence that the government's official version of the events is bogus. But there's lots more evidence to get into, and I could go on about that, but I won't. That's a side note. That's a tangent.
You gonna try to do something about that if you make it into the city government? You're gonna try to unearth the conspiracies, government conspiracies?
Well, quite honestly, as it's going to turn out, not necessarily. I mean, I have a very unique sort of platform, and what I've been talking about with 9/11 sort of transitions well into talking about what my platform's going to be.
What's your platform?
Well, you see, I want to have in place a government that is going to be maximally immune to the kinds of manipulations I just described, criminal conspiracies, in other words. And it so happens that the government that is most immune to these kind of criminal conspiracies is a directly democratic form of government. Now, what kind of government is that? That's the kind of government I'd like to transition the city of Olympia into, and it's like this. In our current city's government, there are only 7 elected people who monopolize all of the legislative power within their own hands. What I would like to see take place instead of that is to have it be so that all of the people of Olympia would directly make public policy instead of elected representatives, so that all of the people who are profoundly affected by the taxes that we pay, by the laws we're compelled to obey, and by what those taxes pay for, these would be the people, that is, all of us, who would directly make these important decisions that affect our lives.
How often would we have to vote if that happened, though?
Well, it would work like this. You see, no one would have to vote in that people would be forced to vote.
But how often would we be asked to vote in your system?
Well, you see, it wouldn't be, as I envision it, well, there are multiple ways in which a directly democratic system of government can be put into place, and ultimately the mechanisms that are going to be put into place are going to be something that the people of Olympia are going to decide. However, I have my own ideas as to what a feasible mechanism is going to be that I will contribute to the discussion, to the decision-making as to what those mechanisms are that are going to be put into effect.
How often does the city council meet right now?
The city council meets every week. Now, to address your earlier question, I think that a feasible system of a direct democracy would have it be so that there would be continuous voting. So we wouldn't be voting once a week or once a day or once a month. Instead, what would happen is there'd be specific medias that would be established, that would be put in place specifically for the purpose of enabling people to directly propose legislation and vote on the same. And these would be accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you see, and they would include an internet-based system, a text phone-based system, perhaps a telephonic system, a mailing system, and an in-person system, so that no matter what your level of technological abilities are or your proclivities are, you'll have an easy means to directly access the political decision-making process as involves proposing legislation and voting on it. And so you would do so at your own convenience, so you wouldn't have to, so that way people that couldn't make a specific date, time, and place, they'd be able to use the medium.
Yeah. We're putting a lot of faith into people willing to participate in the government with this system. And I think most people, do most people even vote for the representatives? Like, what the voting statistics in Olympia are, or depending on how many people were voting for local government based on the population?
Yeah, I don't know what the specific statistics are as involve the city of Olympia in particular. However, I do know what the statistics are as involve the entire state for local elections. And as it turns out, statewide in Washington, there are about 61% of the registered voters. They're the ones who actually participate in the local elections, you see.
So then well, how many percent are registered voters? How many percent? What percent is not even registered then?
In the state of Washington, the percentage of people who are eligible to vote, to register to vote, who actually are registered to vote, is about 81%. So about 81% of 61% works out to be about, I don't know, 45 to 50% of the population that is eligible to vote that is actually voting.
So I think if it's 50% of people are voting for the system we have now, and they only have to vote once a month, I think that would at least go in half if we had to do this voting all the time. I think only like 25% of the people would even be voting at all. That's kind of why the system's there right now, because then people don't want to vote and they just want to tell somebody else to vote for them. And you think, yeah. You think that people are going to want to work harder? Because I think a lot of people, they just want to vote because they don't want to work harder, and they have their own job and they have other things to do, and they don't want to have to worry about all this, like the government.
Well, consider this. I've thought about this a lot, and it turns out that of the many thousands of households that I've spoken to as I've been riding around in the city of Olympia, the vast majority of them look very favorably upon the idea of direct democracy. You see, most people that I talk to about this, they would love to have this system be put into place. And I would also venture to say that if we were to, I would venture to say that there'd be a lot more voter participation in the decision-making process if people knew that their vote actually counted and that they directly made public policy instead of elected people being the ones to do that. You see, I think a lot of the reason why there's apathy and indifference in the political system today is because people recognize that they don't make the political decisions, that it's someone else that does that. And this element of apathy and indifference would be effectively eliminated with a directly democratic system that be put into place, and there'd be much higher level of participation. But you know what? Consider this. It's a very rare individual indeed that cares about no issue in the city's government. I mean, no matter who you are, even if you would consider yourself and others would consider you to be somebody that's apathetic about politics, generally speaking, still, there's got to be some issue that you actually care about. And so here's the thing. Given that we have a population of approximately 46,000 in the city of Olympia, and given that everybody is different, and given also that there's at least one issue out there that everyone cares about, that every one of these 46,000 people cares about, with the system that I'm proposing, there's going to be a much higher number of people, no matter what the issue is, who are going to be participating in rendering the decision regarding the issue at hand. Yeah. You see?
Well, can I ask you about if you get into the government, how are you even going to do this? Like, nobody else is going to be, the other city council people are going to want to keep the city council as it is, so you'll be on the city council and you'll be proposing this new system of government. But most likely, if you're actually on there, won't you just end up being just like an actual city council person and making decisions yourself?
Well, you see, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, it might seem ironic that I'm running for the city council, yet I'm trying to establish a directly democratic form for our government. Well, the whole reason I'm running for the city council is to help effectuate this kind of change. And the plan that I would like to implement as to how to do that is this. See, I get elected first on November 8th. Vote for me. And then after that, but before I actually get appointed into the city council in early 2012, what's going to end up happening is there's going to be a convention that I and other people are going to organize, and there's going to be all the people of Olympia who are invited. You see?
Commercial break, hold on. Yeah, we're going to take a commercial break. just giving me the video. Yeah, he wants to know how you make a commercial. If you guys out there, you want to have a commercial on, you just send me a video. It should be probably about 10 to 30 seconds, and I'll put it on here. And even if it's not a business, even if you just want to show your butt or something, I don't know. I don't know what you want to do, but you can do anything. You can just send us a 30-second video and call it a commercial. Maybe put a title on there. If you want a commercial, Democritus, I mean, you're kind of running out of time. Because, let's see, today is going to air on the 27th, and the elections are... So, yeah, but if you want to give us a commercial, you have about a week to give it to us. But, yeah, so what were you saying before the break?
Okay, well, left off, I was talking about how I would like to affect the transition toward a directly democratic system of government through using myself as somebody that's inside the city council. Well, it would work like this. See, first step is I get elected, but before I actually get appointed into the city council, there's going to be a convention called in which all of the people of Olympia are invited. Now, the purpose of the convention is this: to come up with first a skeletal form with with which the directly democratic mechanisms would function, you see. And that is the means by which people would directly propose legislation, would debate on it, and would vote on it, you see. And then what would also happen in the convention is we'd come up with a plan of implementing this thing within a month's time, so that we would actually have these mechanisms in place in a very basic, rudimentary, skeletal form once I'm actually inside the city council. Okay, so I get inside the city council, and then every single decision that I make while I'm in the city council, even the things I say in the capacity of a city council member, are directly decided by all of the people of Olympia directly, you see. So people would people would propose what I do and say, people would debate on what I do and say, people would vote on what I do and say. And the thing is that this is just a transitionary stage, though. What will end up happening is all of the mechanisms of a direct democracy would get fleshed out in the process. The flaws that are inherent in the mechanisms would get worked out. And people of Olympia would get practiced with direct democracy and the concept itself. What then happens is once all the kinks are worked out and once the mechanisms are fleshed out and are changed to suit the people of Olympia's preferences to the highest degree, and once lots of people are familiar with practicing with direct democracy, then what will happen is there'll be a freeholders election in which all of the people in which will actually elect freeholders will change the corporate charter of the county to allow a directly democratic form of government to be in existence. And then we'll transition to a full-on direct democracy after the mechanisms have already been worked out, fleshed out, and practiced with.
So how long do you think that's going to take?
As I see it, it'll take at least a year, maybe 2 years, for the people of Olympia to flesh out the mechanisms to flesh out the mechanisms and work out the kinks and get us ready for a freeholders election. And then after that, it would probably take like another 6 months to a year to make the full transition toward a direct democracy take place. And I'm hoping that all of this would happen before my 4-year term in city council's up.
So is Democritus, is that your last name? Or
that's my first name.
That's your first name? What's your last name?
My last name is Blanterre.
Blanterre, but you're going by like your whole political thing kind of is a one name kind of thing. I don't know what your sign says. Vote for Democritus, right? And I think all the other candidates are mostly going by their last name, right?
Yeah, see, here's the thing. It tends to be the case that a lot of names that people have in this culture are, there's a lot of other people who have the same name, but there's not a lot of people who have the same last name. And so it tends to be the case amongst politicians who want to differentiate themselves.
Because they vote for Steve or something, yeah.
Right. You see, I mean, if it was vote for Steve, then that'd be a problem because there's a Steve Langer, there's a Steve Langer, and then there's a Steve Buxbaum. So like, which Steve? But if they go by their last name, then they don't get confused with each other.
You made up your name though, right? Or it's not your birth name?
That is not my birth name. I changed my name a few years ago so that I wouldn't be confused with other people on the bus.
You didn't change it for political stuff, or?
I did not change it for a political reason, as a matter of fact.
On the bus? Wait, what, on the bus?
I had a more pedestrian name before, and I was getting confused with other people on the bus.
What was your old name? You don't want to say it, or?
My old name was Nick Bland.
Nick, your last name was actually Bland?
It was actually Bland.
Wow.
I know, isn't that awful? And here's the thing.
And your name's Democritus. What's your last name? Your new last name now?
My last name now is Blanterre, and here's an important thing to consider, okay? Americanization, right? Americanization of names, okay? That's something that's happened to a lot of people that are immigrants over here into this country. It happened with my Welsh ancestors who came over because they weren't too keen on the idea of starving to death.
Yeah.
So, nor are you apparently.
No,
so,
you want some fries?
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Awesome. This isn't a plug for McDonald's, by the way. All right. So here's the thing. Check this out. Like, so my Welsh ancestors had name Blanterre. All right. No, it's okay. So my Welsh ancestors had a last name Blanterre, and it got Americanized, got changed when they became immigrants here to Bland, you know. And I thought, well, that's not cool to Americanize things like that because you lose so much variety, you know. And plus, it's such a worse name. So, like, let's go back to the original thing. Let's keep variety and diversity in the culture, you know, because, like, I mean, that's what adds color to our culture. That's what adds. That's one of our strengths, you know. And, you know, like, that's exactly the kind of reason I'm running, actually. That's part of my platform, you know.
Was there somebody on the bus that had the same name as you that you were getting confused with?
There were tons of Nicks, you know.
Just on the city bus?
Yeah.
And people were like, hey, Nick. And you're like, oh, is that what happened? Or?
One day there was like 3 or 4 of us, and everyone was calling out, Nick, Nick, Nick. And it's like, I kept being like thinking it was me, and it wasn't me that they were calling after, and then I was just like, you know what, that's enough of that.
You're gonna change your name legally with a judge, or how do you go about changing your name?
It's pretty easy. You just go over to the Thurston County Courthouse, and you pay like $100, and you get your name changed legally. It's pretty simple.
Oh, is your mother mad that you changed your name from the name that she gave you to something else?
Not at all.
No, she's happy with it. What's Democritus? What's the name? And is that like a Greek thing? Sounds Greek, maybe.
Yeah, it's Greek. I read Cosmos by Carl Sagan, and there was a guy in there, a 5th century BC Greek philosopher who had a lot of advanced ideas for his time. He thought that the stars in the sky were different suns with worlds like ours that were orbiting around them. Very advanced ideas for that time, very advanced. So, so I decided to use that name, and also it's not a very common one around here. So
it sounds a little sinister to me. Like I mean, it's like kind of it's kind of like, oh, Democritus. It seems like it could be a movie villain, but it's a fun name, I guess. Though it's just the Greek names.
Hey, I'm a villain in real life, so, and now that I'm being video recorded, I guess I'm a movie villain, you know, well, a TV.
Let's check this message. We got some messages. This one's from Dan. I don't think they knew you were going to come here.
Behold, this is Lord Dan.
Hey, Lord Dan.
I am watching the program, and you were discussing breakfast menus and gravy. Behold, I like gravy. I keep it within my realm. Do not eat much because, you know, the cost. Well, that is all. That is all that I shall say to you, because I'm Lord Dan, and I try to keep it short, you know. I pay for the call, after all. I do. I'm a Chinty type 1 skin for cheapskate bastard. Okay.
Oh, halfway through.
Bye-bye.
So,
Thanks a lot for that.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Dan.
That was helpful.
Do you like McDonald's in general? You're eating it now, but...
I don't really buy McDonald's, honestly, because I like to go to the cheaper fast food places.
Cheaper than McDonald's? What's that?
Like Jack in the Box.
McDonald's is a dollar menu, though. I think it's about as cheap as you can get anything at Jack in the Box. So you live at the is this you want to talk about that? Is that something we could tell you on TV or?
Yeah, we can talk about anything.
You live at Camp Quixote, right?
That's right.
So you live in out of a tent?
Yeah, basically, they're like car shelters, like plastic tarp-based car shelter things. That it's a homeless camp, Camp Quixote, and I'm a resident there.
Most of the people live in their cars at the camp?
They don't live in their cars. They're, you might have seen these things around. They're basically like tarps, but they have a structural framework to them, and they're designed to protect cars from the elements. The camp has a lot of those, and we put up plywood inside of these like little protective areas to make sure that people don't get wet on the ground when it gets rained on. And so basically it's a tent city, it's a homeless camp, and yeah.
So you they don't charge to live there or anything? You just
Well, we're supposed to pay $15 a month to pay for all of the expenses that are involved, like buying garbage bags and stuff like that. But I wanted to mention a little bit about my platform here. We were talking earlier about my name, and I had mentioned that there's diversity, right? There's more diversity out there when we don't homogenize things, Americanize things, and with diversity there is strength, and with the kind of platform that I have, it would make it so that there's the maximal possible capitalization on the diversity that exists within the city of Olympia, and the maximal strength that we can get.
I don't know. The maximal possible capital. I don't know. Can you?
Oh, sorry. I'll repeat. So there's the maximal amount of taking advantage of the virtues that arise from diversity that we could possibly have with the kind of platform that I'm proposing, because there's the maximal possible number of people who will be participating in rendering decisions in the city of Olympia, which means the greatest amount of diversity in those decisions, which means, like the greatest amount of diversity of perspectives to draw from in making the decisions, so that if it affects anybody, right, they're not going to be deprived of the ability to actually go and contribute directly to the decision-making process. See?
If you live at Camp Quixote, can you vote still? Because it doesn't have an address, right? Can they still vote?
Yeah, we can get ballots in the mail to our P.O. box, and I, along with some other people, get ballots in the mail.
Okay, let's check this last message. I'm gonna do some show things. Check this message. We gotta call Freddie too, the producer. Let's see how he's doing today. He wants to talk to you. I'm sure he has a question.
Fuck over. Now I got this I got a new phone.
Oh, right.
I dropped my fucking phone. God. I dropped my phone in the fucking water.
Oh, no.
Fuck. Cup of water fucking sitting right next to my goddamn feet.
He dropped his phone in a cup of water?
It slipped out of my hand, was right in the fucking cup.
What?
Oh, boy. So I didn't fucking call you, answer the phone whenever you called me. Fucking son of a bitch. Then all that time calling you, and then you fucking goddamn don't even fucking answer. And then you fucking call me and I can't answer.
I hate it when that happens.
Motherfucker. Heck. Somebody kicked me in the fucking nuts.
He dropped his phone into a cup of water. That's crazy.
Man, that's assault and battery. Jeez.
Hey, have you ever seen the show before?
We need Batman or something. Take care of that.
Yeah, I see. Have you seen the show?
I haven't seen the show before, actually.
Because you don't have the internet or cable TV, right?
I don't.
So you don't get to... How do you keep up with current events and stuff? You have to go watch other... you have to find a media sources other places, or?
I read the newspaper. I check the internet over at the library. So
do you have a job right now?
I do have a job. It doesn't pay a whole lot. I'd like to
Hi,
have...
you've reached Freddie Dobler. I can't come to the phone right now because I left my...
Oh, we left the phone in the thing. We'll try to call his other number. So, yeah, what's the job? And then you don't...
So I'm a videographer, interestingly enough.
Where?
It's this company called Moving Images Northwest.
Oh, I know those guys.
Oh, yeah?
I used to work for them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, actually, you do the horses, right?
That's right, yeah.
How do you get out there then? You had to.
I get rides from people.
Yeah, I used to tell them you know me. I mean, I know those guys. I used to work for them a couple years ago, and that's only like once a month though, like 1 weekend a month.
It's not a lot.
Yeah.
But you know, it's what I got so far. I would like to have.
Hi, you've reached Freddie Dobler. I can't come to the...
Yeah, that's interesting. I did that job. I went out there, and you go out there like 5 a.m. the horse tracks, watching the horse things. That was a fun job. Are you doing editing too with them, or are you just going to the shoots only?
Well, I do know how to do editing. I've taken all the editing classes, so I could. It turns out they have a lot of editors, so they don't really need me to do that. But I'd love to. But yeah. Well, in any case, check this out. Can I tell you a little bit more about my platform?
Okay.
So here's the deal. There are a lot of virtues to a directly democratic system of government that make it so that it has a higher level of quality in terms of the decisions that are rendered, generally speaking. We not only get a greater diversity of perspectives, we also get a higher amount of information that enters into the directly democratic decision-making process. We also get a higher scrutiny of the information. We get more work that enters into the legislative decision-making. We also get a higher depth of experience to draw from in rendering the decisions. Now, these are the virtuous elements that make for good decision making in anything, especially in politics. You see, and it so happens that as you increase the number of people who are the legislators in government, you increase all of these elements within the government's decision making body. Now, since the kind of government that I'm proposing maximizes the number of people who are involved in making the government's decisions, you therefore maximize all of these virtuous elements of decision making. Hence, you make the best possible decisions in a directly democratic form of government. But not only that, we also have a system that makes it their highest level of protection against in government, but also conspiracy in government, like 9/11 that I talked about before. See, 9/11 was able to happen because there wasn't a sufficient amount of oversight and transparency in the government, but by the citizenry. But with the kind of government that I'm proposing, there's the maximal amount of that. So anybody that would try to operate within the government or try to use the government for some kind of criminal conspiracy, they would have the maximal difficulty in doing so under direct democracy, because there are just way too many farmers watching the hen house, if you will. And also, if you make it so that there are the maximal number of people who are the legislators, you also make it so that there's the greatest difficulty in trying to trying to corrupt the government if you're a special interest. Because, yeah, you can blackmail or bribe one person or a few people. You cannot possibly do that to tens of thousands of people simultaneously, you see? And but if nothing else, you see, the main reason that I'm running is because I'm sick of other people deciding on the important things that have to do with my life, as involve the taxes I pay, what those taxes pay for, and the laws that I'm compelled to obey. I'm sick of other people running my life. I'm sick of other people deciding on these important aspects of my life, and I think it's only fair that if you're significantly affected by something, that you be able to decide the outcome of the thing in question that affects you, you see, directly and and equally amongst with all others who are so affected by the thing in question. And it so happens that democracy enables that kind of freedom, that kind of ability to decide for ourselves.
Commercial break.
All of us are immersed in the internet. Our computer monitor becomes an extension of our consciousness.
Our computer monitor becomes an extension of our code.
We act like it's not true, but it is. You start to realize it becomes harder and harder to function.
YDHWM. YDHWM every night, 11:30 p.m. YDHWM. YDHWM every night, 11:30 p.m.
Well, hello again. We're back.
When the city council part of the primaries, did the primaries?
It works like this. There are primary, basically, yes. There are primary elections that take place for any contested office within a given election year.
How did you do in the primaries, though?
Here's the thing. I'm trying to explain here.
Yeah.
So here's how it works. If there are more than 2 people who are running for a given contested position during an election year, then there is a primary election that each of those candidates for that office have to first pass through in order to then advance to the general election. The number that advanced to the general election is only 2. So all the other candidates basically get eliminated in the primary. That's the purpose of the primary. I did not actually participate in the primary. I was not in that election because, as it turns out, there were only 2 people who were running for this particular position that I'm seeking.
Whoa. So you almost got just in. There was only one guy between you and the office. Like if there was that guy was going to run uncontested if it wasn't for you. Is that what's?
Yes, exactly. If it wasn't for me running, then my opponent would have been uncontested in this race.
How much does it pay to be on the city council?
It pays $16,000 a year, but you know what? I'm of the opinion that somebody in the city council shouldn't be paid. I think it should be an unpaid position. I think people should be doing it straight up out of service, out of spirit of altruistic service, and not because they're going to be getting something else in return. But you know what? A lot of times that does happen. A lot of times they run for council positions or political positions because they expect something in return and not necessarily the paycheck that comes from it. I'm thinking more like
bribes?
Sweetheart deals. Yes, sweetheart deals with contractors and things like that.
But because like you know, like it seems like a lot more people would apply to a job at like a Walmart or a Safeway more than 2 people for every job they give out. It seems like more than 2 people, and only 2 people are getting it. It's a high-paying job. Seems like I don't know why more people aren't trying to go for it.
Well, maybe that's because it's got the job view history of the world. You know, like I've been doing this job interview right here ever since April.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's you know what? I believe so strongly in my platform and the kind of changes that I'd like to see brought about that that's fine with me because I'm willing to go the length because I think that these are the kind of changes that need to be brought about to make a better world. And so much of the reason why we have a bad state of affairs politically today and why the world is suffering so much is because political power is concentrated in so few people's hands. And this is the solution to that problem. And this is the solution to poverty of information in governmental decision making and a huge amount of corruption and conspiracy in government, and it's also the solution to the problem of being unable to decide on the important aspects that affect our lives, being not free. And you know, when you decide on the important aspects that affect your life, you're free. When you don't, you're not. And what I'm proposing is to increase the level of freedom for ourselves because we'll be deciding on these important aspects of our lives involved with the city's government.
So who's the other guy? Is this Langer, right? Steve Langer?
That's right, yes.
So what's his deal? Is he a Democrat, or do you get along with him? Have you talked to him?
Well, here's the deal. I think that this guy should be, he shouldn't be in office because when you get inside the city council, you have to swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. And I think that's a good rule. because we don't want people who are in very powerful positions who don't respect basic civil liberties, don't respect basic freedoms.
You're saying he doesn't respect basic civil liberties?
That is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It turns out that he swore this oath to uphold the Constitution, and then he violated that oath recently in voting for certain anti-homeless legislation. More specifically, a rule that forbids people from engaging in certain kinds of protected speech within certain areas in the city of Olympia.
What's that, the ATM thing, or?
Yes, it turns out that according to the city Olympia Municipal Code, any person is forbidden for asking for money from anyone within 25 feet of an ATM or a parking pay station. Now here's the thing, right? Some people have voiced the sentiment that they don't think that this rule is objectionable because, after all, we don't want people going up to others around ATMs and trying to intimidate them out of money. And I understand that. But you know what? If we were to, as it turns out, that is already a law that is already an activity that is prohibited by law. That is
So
basically...
panhandling?
What's that?
Panhandling is legal?
No. Panhandling is legal. It's protected free speech. What I'm saying is going up to somebody and like through a threat of violence to turn over some money, that is robbery, and it is prohibited by law. You see, so already there's a prohibition against going up to somebody around an ATM and trying to intimidate them into giving away some of that money. You see?
Well, what about, I mean, like, they just want to guilt tripping and intimidating or something if they're trying to get money from you. I don't like those people that are trying to ask me for money. I don't have any money, and I get asked every time anyway, and I want some money or something, but I'm not asking anybody else for it. I think that's okay. I don't want them to be doing that, and I think if they can stop them from doing that. But so you think people should be able to ask for money around those things?
Consider this, okay?
Yeah.
It comes down to a lot of important constitutional concepts here. It goes way beyond just the issue of, should somebody be allowed to, do I want somebody asking me for money or not? Because as it turns out, according to Article 6, Paragraph 2 of the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Now, according to Marbury versus Madison Supreme Court decision in 1803, any law that is passed that violates, that contravenes the U.S. Constitution, that goes against it, is automatically nullified. Now let's look at more specifically at the First Amendment. The First Amendment says that there shall be no abridgments to freedom of speech. That is, there are no restrictions to what you can say. You can say anything you want. However, right, there are exceptions to that given rule, you see, and one of them is the present danger clause. You see, you're not allowed to use your free speech in a context that would result in imminent physical harm to someone. You see, so like the classic, you cannot yell fire around constitutionally protected free speech.
Yeah.
You see, however, basically every other form of speech is constitutionally protected. So unless it violates the clear and present danger clause, then it falls within the jurisdiction of the First Amendment, which says that there are to be no abridgments on it. Therefore, it's constitutionally protected. Now let's consider the instance of now, with the clear and present danger clause, a reasonable person looking at the situation would conclude that the use of free speech under those circumstances would result in imminent physical harm, you see, to people. Now, let's consider the example of the anti-panhandling ordinance, you see. Does the clear and present danger clause apply? Well, as it turns out, it does not, because it is possible for a person to go up and, in a civilized, polite way, non-threatening, to merely ask for money, right?
I think the act is slightly threatening in itself. Just because you're like, oh, well, you want it. It's like, whoa, so this person is trying to, they need help, and but you're kind of, it's kind of scary sometimes. And if you don't give them money, you just think that maybe they're going to do something bad. People are avoiding downtown because of that sometimes though too. But it seems a little scary, and it seems like that's like too much. It's almost like you're just using the politics to do things that aren't even really connected to it. Nobody wants panhandling doesn't seem like it should be part of that thing, and like not panhandling just makes sense. And like if you're trying to use the law, that seems like a loophole almost into making it so that you can't make the law the thing that you're saying.
What I'm trying to get at is I'm trying to make it so that the law is understood, and that the law that the law is also respected. You see, as it turns out, a person can say anything they want under any circumstances, so long as they're not going to be eminently harming somebody else in the process of actually using their free speech.
What about taking somebody else's money? I mean, even if you're not illegally taking it, but you give them a quarter just because, like, if I had a quarter and give it to somebody else, I don't make that much money, but then they have my money, and because they asked for it, and is taking money from somebody kind of harmful? I guess you're giving it to them, but.
Well, you see, here's the thing. Merely asking someone for money and doing it in a way that is not meant to be threatening or intimidating is legally protected free speech anywhere in the city of
I think that should, maybe that's the problem. Maybe asking for money should be illegal. Maybe they have to change the Constitution for that, but I think that's a kind of a weird thing to defend.
Well, you see, here's the thing. I mean, I think that it makes sense to defend this, and here's why. You see, because really it goes beyond just trying to protect people's panhandling. Really, it comes down to here they're trying to attack free speech, and they're trying to put an abridgment in place. They're trying to violate the U.S. Constitution. They're trying to put restrictions on free speech, and it affects not only the homeless people, it affects everyone. And lots of people in government, they do that. First, they do it a little bit here, and then they do it a little bit there, and then pretty soon, there's no civil liberties left. You see. And the important thing to consider also is that the Constitution was designed to protect the rights of the powerless and the minorities. You see, that's what the Bill of Rights was put in there to protect against the abuses of the majority and against the abuses of people with power. And what we have here is an abuse by the people of power, because really the objective of this whole law is to come up with another reason for the police to go and to harass and ticket the homeless people. And that's an approach that's fundamentally unsound. Firstly, because it's just wrong to try to target any particular sector of society as the unwanted, and then to try to illegalize them and harass them. And it turns out that in the history of this country, people who are indigent, very poor, homeless, transients, these people have perennially been subject to police harassment and have been targeted by the government. But we need to enter into a new era where everybody in society is treated equally and everybody works together for a common prosperity, instead of having everyone fight against each other or like target some powerless minority for harassment. Now, as it turns out, right, it's very important. This whole issue is very important for me, because what ends up being the case is that we need to ensure that people we need to ensure that, well, here's the thing: the price of existing this and the other people whom you necessarily care for.
I'm calling McDonald's because it's almost the end of the show. We're gonna call and get one in front. Hello.
Hello, Barnstormer McDonald's.
Hey, do you guys have the pumpkin pies yet?
Do we have the pumpkin pies?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Oh, great. I've been waiting for those all year. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks. That was a McDonald's. Here's what I want to call.
You should have told her you were live.
Oh yeah. Well, I want to call. I also want to call Bird because it's the last. At the end of the show, he's at those protests. So he's our man on the streets there for the protest. So I want to find out if there's any news on that because it's the end of the show. Thanks for doing the show. It's the we're pretty much at the end here. If you want, yeah. So how do we vote? How do people vote? Is that in the mail or people go to like a church or something?
The mail, but there's lots of places you can actually go and fill out a ballot in person.
Hey, Bird. We're here with Democritus, but hey, we're almost at the end of the show. Is there any what's happening with the Occupy?
Hey, well, we're still here. There's a lot of people here. There's a lot of people in the camp right now, actually. A few more tents have been set up today. And, things are moving along. There's a lot of work to be done. Weather's good, so that's nice. There's room for everyone.
Is there any conflicts?
Olympia. Any conflicts? Yes, there's definitely conflicts. Some people are frustrated. Some people don't feel that they're getting listened to. There's definitely some conflicts, yeah.
They're not getting listened to by everybody.
Yeah, so there's some hurt feelings.
So infighting.
Yeah, I have some hurt feelings, and I think there's some miscommunication going on. And I think that, that people are really stressed out, and and.
Well, what are you guys fighting about? Are you guys just like hanging out in a field?
Yeah, we're hanging out in the field. We're fighting about what we should be doing and what we should be saying. Yeah. And we're fighting about what we are saying, what we think we're saying. People disagree about what we're saying, what we should say, how we should say it. What kind of we're fighting. We're having disagreements about what violence is. How do you define violence? We're having disagreements about how to get along. I don't know,
Whoa. Well, you guys got to get together. We were supposed to be solidarity, everybody. Yeah.
We need some your daily hour with me. We need some good entertainment down here. We need some humor.
Yeah.
Some laughter.
I think we're gonna be down there on next Thursday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I hope we're still here.
All
I
right.
hope the weather's good. We got a tent, we have electricity, so we should be able to, hook it up.
Great.
So.
Okay, it's the end of the show now. We have to. Okay, bye, Bird. Thanks for the update. We'll talk to you
bye
later.
to Democritus. Hey, good luck to everyone in the election.
All right, thanks very much.
Bye.
Oh, he was saying bye. Well, any closing words here? It's 28. We have 28 seconds.
Uh-oh, countdown. Well,
Oh. Yep.
Let me just say this. Vote for me on November 8th. Go to Thursday County Courthouse. Registered.
Go to Thurston County Courthouse, register in person to vote. Vote for me. We'll get direct democracy, better system of government, the change we need.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks, Democritus. You want to come back, or maybe we'll try to get closer to the election next week. I'm gonna try to get Dick Boost back too, because it's gonna be happening pretty soon.
Sure, I'd love to come back.
We're on Facebook. Yeah, give us a call if you can get to a phone. You can give us updates. We'll play the messages on TV if you have anything to say.
That sounds good. You got
the number here: 330-536-2802. It's the 20th. You want to be on the crew? You don't have to do anything. You just say you want to be on the crew, and then you can get on there, and you find your name right here. There's Dick. He's on the crew. I put him on the crew for some reason. Thanks,
put me on the crew.
Yeah, Democritus. Thanks, Channel 22, TCTV. It's public access. We got free speech. Say whatever we want. Thanks, the baby. Hell yeah, dog. Hell yeah. Everybody get out there to vote for some Democritus there. Thanks, Democritus. Bye-bye. What's going on with this mic? Is cutting out.